We are just under 2 weeks away from BookCon, and I still have a good 70 books to wrap. I have like 40 prompts I have to write, and then all of these ones are already prompted, and then I have to stuff all 275 books, and then I also have to finish crocheting all my dragons. So we'll see how much I can actually get done this week. As you can see from the pile of yarn behind me, I've been actively crocheting, and last week I made this whole bag, which has 55 plushies in it, including some cats, some ghosts, some mushrooms that still need the little seeds embroidered on top, but this one has a booty. And there's some frogs and bears buried in there too. The main thing I still need to make are my dragons, my dragon hatchlings, shoulder buddies, and finishing sewing off all of my larger chubby dragons. I have about half of the dragon hatchlings and shoulder buddies done. So I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get all this done this week. We'll see. But tonight we're focusing on the books. So
be up there one day, right?
yeah.
No, we're not.
I was doing video.
So it is Saturday morning, the morning of day one of BookCon, and we have done so much to get here and pulled a lot of very late nights. Potentially pulled an all-nighter on Tuesday night into Wednesday before we drove all the way up to Newark, but that is behind us. We are officially starting BookCon today. Yesterday we did all of the setup of the booth. The only thing we didn't set out were the plushies. And so this morning we're going to organize those. I'm going to finish tying off a few wings before we get started. And yeah, I'm so excited. I'll show you the booth once we're there to see the final setup. And I'll show you some behind the scenes clips here as well of the setup process. But overall, I think this will be a very fun weekend. As stressed as I've been to get here, I'm just excited to see what it's actually like.
Day 2. She loves it. She's crocheting. Non-stop. I'm gonna video log this.
Okay, real quick for context, we had sold out of dragon hatchlings the day before of all the ones I had completely finished. And by the end of the day, I had 2 more that I had finished just attaching the wings and was able to set them out Sunday morning. But I set them out before we opened. My husband warned me to wait, and I thought, what could happen? People won't come in till 10. It's fine. So I had put out 2 hatchlings that morning and was actively working on more. And he ended up stepping away from the booth for a couple minutes when this happened.
Okay, it's 9:30. We're not even open yet. And our little dragon hatchlings are gone because someone decided to put them out before we opened.
It's not my fault.
It's her fault.
I just want to see the famous dragon. We're seeing it out there. Oh, there.
Alright, well, switch the signs out here.
That went really quick.
So BookCon ended last night, and I am still just blown away by the turnout at this event. I did not think there was going to be that many people, I guess, come through the booth. Like, I expected there to be a lot of attendees, but for there to be so many people shopping and supporting all of the vendors there, I ran out of stock for some items really quickly and was crocheting a lot last night and yesterday during the whole conference. I think the one downside is I didn't enjoy much of the conference for myself. I literally walked around the last 15 minutes of yesterday, but it was overall definitely a success. Definitely will be applying for next year because I think next year will be even better. Now that the organizers have a year under their belt of bringing this conference back, I think they'll be able to improve a lot of the organization details for next year for both vendors and attendees. And yeah, I just think it was great.
It was crazy.
It was really successful for us. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, it was crazy. Come by next year.
Also, I'll be doing a full breakdown of the market here in a second once I'm back home and can run through the numbers, what sold out, what things maybe didn't move as quickly, but ultimately, like I said, we sold out of almost everything. We were down to just one table that we put out front by the very end of yesterday. So yeah, I'll be breaking down more details and also talking more about some behind the scenes of the conference itself, because I know we were only able to get so much footage because, like my husband said, it was crazy. So we weren't able to get a lot just because there were so many people in the booth at times that it was packed and we were like trying to stand in a corner and not take up much space. So didn't get a ton of footage during the market, but I will talk more about it here in a second. So it's been a couple months since BookCon officially ended, and I was just really burnt out from the entire experience. It was great, don't get me wrong, and I truly did love it, and I am hoping to return next year. But I was exhausted, and I also have since then had 3 other smaller markets, which is another mistake I will not repeat so soon after such a big conference. But overall, there was a lot of positives, a few negatives of the experience, but I wanted to sit down with you and not only talk about my experience overall, but break down some practical numbers of how I measured success at this event, especially as a small business that does not have a very large following. So, starting with some of the negatives, a part of the conference overall,
One of them was actually nothing to do with the convention itself, but more so the prep ahead of time. And the day we were supposed to leave to drive up, really that morning, because we left at 6 a.m. on Wednesday before BookCon. That morning at like 4:30, I wanna say, we were loading up the car and realized there was not gonna be enough space to hold all of the books that we had wrapped. So I originally planned to bring 275, and I think I brought closer to maybe 215, 220, and that was because we had to leave behind a significant number of books. And being sleep deprived because I did pull an all-nighter that night before, I also wasn't thinking about which genre of book we were leaving behind, and we ended up leaving behind a good amount of fantasy and romance books, but we took all of my historical fiction, all of the mystery, and BookCon had a very large fantasy and romance focused crowd. So that was something that I didn't realize until we got there and I started organizing them all into their baskets that I was kicking myself for, because I do think those books would have sold, especially quicker than the other ones. But in the future, probably would need either a bigger vehicle so we had more space, or we've also talked about getting like collapsible crates to be able to pack them in and make more efficient use of the space. I also was very stressed in general leading up to this convention of everything I had to crochet and prep ahead of time. It was very time consuming, and I do not recommend trying to squeeze in prep for this large of a convention in 2 to 3 months, because that was the amount of time I gave myself. And I would not do that part again. It was overwhelming. My mom, thank goodness, was able to fly in and help me with a lot of it. She doesn't crochet, but she was able to help me with more of the tedious things like printing out stickers or wrapping all of the blind books. So she was a big help, and honestly, the thing that saved my butt in the end of trying to get everything finalized the week of. But I brought a lot of crochet items, not as many as I would have wanted to, and I ended up making some custom orders during the weekend. So, come Saturday, which I'll talk about this more later, but the crochet dragons that I had made actually sold out really quickly. And so I started offering making custom orders for people for the weekend of. So if they came by on Saturday, being able to make it and for them to pick up on Sunday. And I'm so happy I was able to offer this for people. But that also added to the stress overall on the weekend, just in all of my time spent at my booth was crocheting orders to be ready to pick up the next day. And I did cut it off at one point because practically I was like, I don't have enough time to do this many. And I ended up staying up Saturday night of the convention till I think like 3 a.m. trying to not only finish up customs, but also getting more product to be able to have out on Sunday because those dragons were selling so quickly. And again, if I'd given myself more prep time, I could have come with more and done less weekend of. And that overall led to me not really getting to enjoy the convention overall. I didn't go to any author signings or panels or anything like that, and really only got to walk around to see other vendors in the last like 15, 30 minutes on Sunday. So next year, I definitely want to give myself more prep time so that way the weekend is less about crocheting stuff in the moment and more of I have what I have and I just get to enjoy the experience of being there. The one thing that came up with the convention itself that was an organizer issue, and I appreciate the way they handled this after the fact because they were very accommodating and really nice and tried to adjust and make up for this miscommunication. But I got the opportunity to host an Empyrean meetup. If you haven't read the Empyrean series, Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, Onyx Storm. But through BookCon, you were able to submit an application to host a meetup for a specific fan base or hobby or activity, etc. And I'd submitted to host an Empyrean meetup and was approved and really excited about it. And on Saturday, I was told over email that the time slot would be I believe it was 2:30 and was expecting to be there. Obviously, I'm a vendor, so I am at my booth leading up to that very moment, but had planned to be able to step away. My husband and my parents were there all weekend, thank goodness, to allow me to step away from my booth. And when I went to the main convention hall that we were meeting at, no one was there. And someone had said, "Oh, were you like a part of the group that was here earlier?" Yeah, that was a really large crowd. They canceled it because the host didn't show up. I said, I am the host. It was supposed to start at 2:30. What do you mean? Come to find out, the time that BookCon had posted on their social media was, I think, 1:45 or 2, but it was significantly earlier, enough time that they had to cancel it for a no-show host before the time I was told. So all of the people that had showed up for that meetup thought I just didn't show up, when in actuality I was given a time, but that time wasn't the time then shared with everyone else. And as a result, missed out on a large crowd of people who not only I think would have loved the dragons that I sell, but also love a series that I'm a fan of, and just getting to talk and interact with those individuals. So that was really disappointing, especially hearing from a lot of people about how large the crowd was. And I heard it multiple times following. Oh, yeah, it was a really big group that had gathered for that event. Like, I was surprised. I'm like, dang it. But I did contact the person who I'd been in touch with over email, and she was very apologetic of the whole situation and came to find me in person. And we set up a meetup time for Sunday as like an alternative, but there wasn't really a large crowd for Sunday when that meetup did happen. People kind of came and went rather than staying and chatting with each other. So it definitely wasn't the turnout I was hoping for, and the turnout that would have happened with Saturday's event. But of all of the craziness of that weekend and all of the details, the fact that that was really my only experience that wasn't great with communication with that team, I'd say is pretty good, because I know there was a lot of stuff being balanced. Was it a disappointment? Yes, but I do appreciate them trying to rectify the situation as well. And the meetup itself was an opportunity for me to be able to meet people, have a little like fun quiz questionnaire. I had free stickers, but also I was offering people a discount to my shop. So anyone that did come on Saturday that then came by my booth and had mentioned it, I still honored that discount and just kind of explained to them, like, sorry, there's a miscommunication with times. I think the disappointment was also with, I never want that to look poorly on me and that I simply forgot a time or was late to my own event. That's not the impression I want to leave with people who shop from me. So that was also like well, I really hope they know this was a miscommunication error and not something that I just didn't care to show up, because it was something I genuinely was super excited about. On to the positives. And as much as I didn't get to full force experience the conference as your average convention goer, I did get to experience a lot of great things being down in the vendor hall. I've heard some stuff online that were conflicting opinions on whether BookCon was a great event or felt overwhelming. Some people specifically referencing the 3A exhibit hall as just being overwhelming with all the big publishers and people crowding each other out, etc. And I was down in exhibit hall 1 with the indie authors and a lot of other vendors, and that environment was great. So, as a business owner, the convention was very successful for me. I did make back my expenses that I put into it and then some, and I also just had a lot of sweet customer interactions. There were people who would come up to my booth saying like, oh my gosh, I saw people wearing the little like shoulder dragons and I was wondering where I could get them. Are you the booth with those? And either being excited because there was still some left or disappointed because I ran out. But getting to see stuff like that, or people just making conversation with me while I was crocheting, was fun. And I had a few people who just chatted with me for a couple minutes while I'm like working on custom orders. Made me feel a little less alone and apart from the community and more integrated into it, even though I wasn't walking around the space. And even though I sold out of a lot, the word of mouth marketing and the excitement that stirred with people around my crochet dragons ended up leading to me getting several Etsy orders literally that same day or in the few weeks that followed. And there was a specific customer interaction that just made me smile so much on Sunday with like 2 minutes left. I'm talking, it was 4:58 and the con officially ended at 5. So we had like 2 minutes. I had been walking around just trying to see a few other vendors near me before everything shut down. And as I was making my way back to my booth, I heard a couple of girls saying, oh my gosh, like we have 2 minutes. Where was that booth with the ghost plushie? I can't find it. Like, I can't remember where it was. And I had a few different crochet ghost plushies at my booth that had gotten some attention. So I just thought about it, hesitated for a second, and then went up to them and asked them, hey, were you at my booth earlier today? Because I thought I recognized them. And they both look at me and they're like, oh, yes, oh my gosh, we found you. It's a miracle. And we're like so excited. So I led them back to my booth and they ended up purchasing one of the ghost plushies because I happened to have one left. So just small moments like that were so fun of getting to see people light up over the things I made and crocheted. And I'm so glad that the products that I find super cute and I love to make were stuff that resonated with readers and the people who went to the con. But overall, I think of that convention experience so positively because of the readers that were there, because of the attendees, because of the people who stopped by my booth. They were all super kind and sweet and just really fun to talk to and a great community to be a part of. I'll share another story. I also had this like big, you probably saw it in my overall pan of my booth, but at the front I had this big black chubby dragon and it was pretty crowded like almost all day Saturday during one of the moments where the aisle between booths was packed and there was a ton of people in my actual booth space. There was actually a girl who was like walking by and it was kind of like at a standstill of traffic moving down the aisle and she was stopped right in front of my cart and saw the dragon and she was like whispering to her friend, pointing at it, talking about it. And she didn't even fully come into my booth, but ended up purchasing that little chubby dragon. It was just one of those like cool experiences of someone that otherwise probably would have just passed by. And as crowded as some moments were at the convention, getting opportunities like that to interact with people and slow down, I think was a bright spot in the fact there were so many people. And a lot of people also, as they're walking by in the thick crowd, saw my husband's shirt and like laughed at it or made a comment about it. And also, a lot of the people there were just like making conversation with my husband because he was the main one running my checkout area while I was crocheting. And he's super friendly and outgoing. So if you did get a chance to meet him at the convention, I would consider yourself lucky because he is super sweet. His shirt, I think, is what made it because it is pink in my branding colors. And on the front says, her business, my muscle. And on the back said, behind every small business is a husband carrying tables. And then it also had my logo on it. And that cannot be a truer statement for my husband because he has truly been at every single market that I've done and has helped me set up, tear down, has been there with me as our couch is covered in yarn fuzzies from all the crocheting. And having his support during this weekend, I think was one of my favorite parts of the whole weekend. In addition to my parents getting the opportunity to be down there and really see my small business in action and how well it resonated with that audience and seeing them get excited over stuff or talking about my creations with the sense of like pride was really nice to see and experience, as stressed as I was the whole weekend. Okay, so now breaking down specific numbers, I want to talk about my best-selling products, my worst sellers, and also my monetary goals for the weekend overall. So for bestsellers, anything that was a dragon sold out. I had a couple of chubby dragons, which are these like larger dragons that are 15 different pieces sewn together. I had a ton of dragon hatchlings, so they had like a little egg and then a baby dragon inside. And then I also had mystery dragons, shoulder dragons is what I was calling them, and they were this little dragon that you could put on your shirt and like had a magnet to keep it there and wear it around the convention. And I think what helped those sell so well is people then started wearing them and then would run into people who asked, where'd you get that from? So it kind of drove people organically back to my booth. But the dragon hatchling specifically, I actually ran pre-orders for at a time that people could custom order a dragon hatchling. So I had those. I had the ones that I brought with me. Again, would have loved to make more, just was short on time. And then I also had ones that I made weekend of, those custom orders I was talking about taking. And I want to say I did like 8 custom orders weekend of, which is crazy. And then I had another additional, I think, set of 8 orders that was placed afterwards on my Etsy because I ran out. And those are just the ones that I know for sure were from BookCon. I got a few more Etsy orders than that as well. That was either because of the traffic coming back to my Etsy shop, it helped push it out to more people, or they were also people who saw my booth at BookCon. But either way, between the Etsy orders that followed that I knew for sure were as a result of BookCon, the orders I did over the weekend, the pre-orders, and the ones I brought with me, I obviously sold out of my dragon hatchlings at 44 dragon hatchlings, which was a lot. I think what I had originally planned to bring for inventory was like 30 to 35 and ended up bringing probably closer to 20 plus the custom orders. So to sell 44 was crazy. And then for those shoulder dragons, I brought 50 with me and sold out of these. Really, I sold 49, but one of them had like a wing issue that I had needed to fix. So sold out of my dragons. And it's crazy to think that between those and the hatchlings and the chubby dragons, I sold almost 100 dragons over the course of this weekend. For chubby dragons, I had wanted to bring more, but again, was limited on time. I'd brought 2 and also made a custom order one, and all of those sold. Another item I had that wasn't dragon related that I brought a lot of were my mushroom buddies. I brought 20 mushroom buddies and then 5 with like a sunflower top variation, and I sold 23 out of 25 of those. However, it was something that sold mainly on Sunday, I noticed, and I don't know if that was because I was out of dragons or because Sunday morning we were adding dots to the mushrooms because I had like the basic color but had ran out of time to add the dots. You might notice a theme here of me running out of time to prep things. But once I added the dots, those were selling really quick. So again, I don't know if it was because of the lack of dragons and people still wanted something crochet, or if it was because they had the dots, they were more recognizable as a mushroom, but 23 out of 25 is not too bad. And then I had a lot of other crochet items that I didn't bring a ton of. I did bring 10 loaf cats and 10 ghosts. Both of those completely sold out. And then I brought 5 or less of a lot of different items, and a lot of those sold. I think of the 170 to 180 plushies that I brought, I had less than 10 left. So this conference overall, as much as I'm breaking it down into bestsellers and worst sellers, I practically sold out of my entire booth. Books as well, which carries me into my next bestseller. I had prepped around 275, I think, and ended up only able to bring like 220 maybe, because I think I had like 10 or 11 left. And ultimately I sold 198 blind books. And then I also had series bundles, so blind date with a completed series. And I sold 4 of those, which was another 10 books. So overall sold 208 blind dates with a book. And honestly, I think what helped the blind dates with a book, as popular of an item as that is, and I've honestly had thoughts of not doing them anymore because they've become so popularized, but I take a lot of pride in wrapping them well and making them beautiful and making them really intentional. So not only do I try to wrap it cute and create a label that goes into detail of the main idea of the book, some tropes, the Goodreads rating, etc., but also the items I include are really intentional. So I try to match the items I'm stuffing the blind books with either the theme of the book or, if I can, coordinating colors of the book cover, so that way when you open it, it feels like a curated experience. And also the bookmarks and stickers that I'm including are ones that I've designed. So it feels a little bit more personal and not just like the bulk sticker packs that you can get on Amazon, which is how I started. But since then, I've been able to put more time into creating custom stickers and bookmarks to make it feel more connected to my brand and not just like another thing I offer. And I also think my pricing is competitive for them being new books, and I really do check myself to make sure that there aren't like dents or significant like tears or anything, to make sure that the books look nice and it's a book I would pick up off a shelf as a reader. And I think that has helped with the success of those at markets, and I'm glad to see that those small details are appreciated too by the people purchasing them. Oh, also forgot to mention this, but the shoulder dragons, the rate at which they were selling, I probably would have sold out of all 50 on Saturday had I displayed all 50 on Saturday. I'm glad I had a few that I still had to work on Saturday evening, so the Sunday crowd had some as well, but I feel like I have to double those next year because they were so popular. And now on to the worst sellers. Like I said, a lot of my booths sold out. So when I talk about worst sellers, it was just the stuff that I had more leftovers of. Not necessarily that they did terrible, but maybe the amount that I brought with me weren't as successful as those things that totally sold out. One of those would be my blind dates with a Kindle. I don't know if this is because of size limitation. I create like a custom cutout for the 11th gen because since I first started selling that product last year, Amazon has come out with a 12th generation that's a slightly different size, a Kindle, or if it was just something people weren't interested in. But I sold 18 of my blind dates with a Kindle. And then another worst seller would be stickers. I sold 24, but also I recognize I didn't bring a lot of stickers. I didn't make their display a focus piece. It was kind of just like an extra small thing, quick, easy to grab for people. And so I think that lack of intentionality behind how they were displayed, but I think that's probably why they didn't sell as well. And also I didn't have a bunch of stickers in stock for each of my designs. It was like 1 to 3 depending on the design, and only a few of them had like 10 or more. So, and then one that I would definitely categorize as a worst seller, probably my worst seller of the entire booth, are my TBR cards. And I don't know an exact number for how many sold, and that's because on my Square system, I forgot to create a category for them. So we just had to put custom amount, and most of the time my husband wasn't writing notes down for what the item actually was when he put custom amount. So I don't know if any of those were TBR cards, but there was one cash transaction that were TBR cards. So I know at least one set sold. But yeah, these just haven't really been a popular thing at any of the markets I've done. I will not be restocking this as a product in the future. I'm just going to sell them until they sell out because they don't get a lot of traction. And I don't know if that's because of the way they're packaged, like people just not knowing what they are from a distance or not knowing like all of the prompts that are included. But yeah, I probably won't sell these again. I have started using the TBR decks though and splitting them up as prompts in my blind dates with Kindle. So we are savvy and reusing. And then finally, my worst seller, I only had one of these and it didn't sell, but it's my pumpkin pie turtle. I have had this turtle since the fall, and I recognize that April is not the season that people are normally shopping for fall items. Although I did have pumpkins and ghosts, and all of those ended up selling. So, but my pumpkin pie turtle has still not sold, and he has been to over 10 markets, I think like 11 or 12 at this point, last time I calculated, and he still hasn't found a home. So, if you're watching this video and you like the look of my pumpkin pie turtle, send me a message or a DM on Instagram because little Spice here needs a home. And finally, talking about my monetary goals going into this weekend, I want to address the expenses that go into doing a convention like this at this scale and with having to like move all my product out of state, etc. This was a large investment for me, and honestly something I was really terrified to do. I'd only done Saturday markets and a couple of bigger events, like one book specific related event last year. And I had started my business last May. So only a year in business. I don't have a huge following. I'd only had experience doing Saturday markets. And this was a large undertaking, not just time wise, but also financially, and really intimidated me. So between the vendor fee, gas for driving from Nashville to New York and back, parking in New York City, food throughout the time that we were there, displays that I purchased specifically for this event, and I will continue to reuse for other markets, but I did originally purchase them for this event, like my collapsible bookshelves. And then also the product costs. So yarn, the books, stickers, bookmarks, all of the costs that went into creating my products. All of that together, I had budgeted for $5,500 and probably ended up spending closer to $6,500. So when I say I was very intimidated going into this weekend, I was hoping to just be able to make that investment back and not lose money as a result of this endeavor, and hopefully just gain a few more customers, gain experience, and learn from it overall in order to do better the next time. But I was happily surprised when I not only made back my investment, but then some. And going into this weekend, I was hoping like baseline goal was making back the money that I put in. And then a step above that, what I would have been happy with was just walking away from the weekend with some profit, making that time of driving up there, crocheting all the product, and managing a booth for 16 hours overall between 2 days worth my time. And then I had a like shoot for the stars goal, one more step above that. This is probably completely unrealistic. I don't think I'm going to make this much money. Told my husband like, "Hey, what if?" Crazy, I know. And we actually ended up making a bet on if I could make that much because we both thought, yeah, this is totally unrealistic. But if I just so happen to, could I get a Switch 2? Which seems like a silly bet, but it was after months of putting such hard work and time into crocheting and ultimately a hobby that I originally started because I loved it and I have made it into a business. Getting to splurge on an item that was for my own personal enjoyment and just getting to kind of take back my evenings after them being filled with crochet was something that excited me. So I don't want to give specific numbers just because I personally feel a little conflicted on that. Feels a little weird and personal to share online, but knowing those general tiers of goal, let's just say I hit my shoot for the stars goal. and I got a Switch too. So this convention was definitely very successful, and I think with better planning and management of my time, as well as planning my inventory to accommodate for what's most popular, aka dragons, I think honestly I could potentially double what I made. That's crazy to say. Probably not, but I could definitely make more next year with proper amount of time leading up to it and preparing for this convention. Speaking of next year, I just wanted to also share my plans and goals for if I get the honor of being invited back to BookCon 2027. I applied literally that same weekend because I just enjoyed it so much. But like I already mentioned, I am currently working on an inventory sheet and just trying to get an idea of everything I want to make so that way I can spread out my time crocheting over the course of this next year, not condensed into 2 to 3 months, and also accounting for what items were most popular. So definitely want to make more dragons. I actually have a plan to offer a larger variety of crochet dragons. So I recently made these sleeping dragons that I am absolutely in love with. So I'd love to bring those next year in addition to my dragon hatchlings, the chubby dragons, and the shoulder dragons. I will probably bring 100 shoulder dragons next year because those sold out so quickly and I want to have enough. I also think in regards to custom orders next year, I still will take pre-orders, but I'm not planning on doing custom orders weekend of. That added a lot of unnecessary stress for me, and I was more than happy to provide that joy to people weekend of who really wanted one and be able to make something rushed for them. But I would like to actually enjoy the convention next year and the time that I spend in my booth really be interacting with people. And I would love to just have all of my crochet done before the week of. So even with custom orders, everything done ahead of time. So the week of the convention, I can just focus on packing. And then once we get to New York, just enjoying the convention for myself. Hopefully, go see a couple of authors and attend author signings and panels and visit other vendors, talk to indie authors, just get to enjoy the experience of being there while I have helpers because that's the great thing of having people in my life who are supportive and there to help me is I should be able to have the freedom to step away and enjoy the convention. I just need to make sure that everything's done ahead of time. And also establishing that healthy boundary of whatever I bring with me is what I'm going to sell. Anything beyond that, I can redirect people to Etsy. As much as I want to overserve for people, I have to recognize my time and my sanity, not wanting to compromise that as much as I love to make things for people and see their face light up. And then finally, my parents, my husband, and I all kind of sat and talked after the convention, and they all offered me great feedback and suggestions or ideas. And we kind of had this moment to brainstorm and think of what could we do to improve? And throughout the weekend, honestly, as mishaps happened, we were keeping a running list either on paper or like in our head of these are the things I would change. This is what didn't run smoothly that we could adjust for and plan for in the future. So having that running list was actually super helpful because I feel like I have a starting point for next year, not just based on my personal experience, but also when everything still felt fresh, having that list of small details that I probably would have forgotten about by now if I hadn't written it down, but small details and adjustments and minor fixes that'll help the weekend go smoother overall and eliminate some of the stress. And some of those, just for example, were getting a minivan or researching SUV rentals to be able to take more with us to the convention and hopefully not leave behind books. And also getting collapsible crates, like I mentioned earlier, make efficient use of our loading space in the car. Also, I think it would be great to request additional time off for an event like this. I really just requested the driving days and the time I was in New York. But I think at least having the day before the drive off would be great. So that way I could organize everything. If there was something last minute, could quickly knock it out that day, pack for myself, because I did pull an all-nighter the night before and that sucked to go from having an all-nighter to a 15-hour drive. But thank goodness my husband was the one who started off that drive. And then after my mom took a little bit of a nap, she then swapped him out. So I was able to rest, but would not do again. I also think it would be good to adjust my inventory and pricing. So, like I said, adjusting inventory to accommodate for what's popular, but also adjusting my pricing because I think I undercut myself with some of my items and the pricing I was used to for Saturday markets where crochet isn't as popular, being a business really for readers or fans of just cute plushies is a little more niche and I think less present at markets, so people tend to pay less for that kind of item, and I have to price a little lower in order for those items to sell. So carrying over that same pricing structure into BookCon, I don't think I'd do again. I think I'd actually price my items for the time it takes me to pay myself a decent wage. I don't think it would be a significant pricing adjustment, probably just by like a few dollars depending on the product. And then there was a lot of other small things we talked about, like adjusting some of my signage to be in an easier to read font when you're far away, and overall a lot of small adjustments that probably would have been fixed simply by not saving stuff till the last minute. So I will continue to go back to that list as BookCon next year gets closer, and hopefully be able to update you if I have officially been approved to vend at BookCon next year, because I would love to and would love to bring to life the vision I have in my head right now of this assortment of crochet dragons I have planned, because I am definitely planning on coming back bigger and better than this year. So I'm excited. If you love the products that you saw in this video, as much as this channel is not focused on my business, I will have the link to my Etsy shop in this description. So if you want a little dragon of your own to decorate your shelves, or you want a blind date with a book that's personalized and tailored to your reading tastes, feel free to check out that link. Otherwise, I will see you next week with another video, and hopefully next year if you're attending BookCon. Bye, everyone. So,
What was this clip
Well-
gonna be?